All right, guys, welcome back. I'm Zach McCarley, and this is Strongman Theory. Today is a very exciting one because we're actually getting into some of the nitty-gritty of the training splits. And today, we are talking about event training. So events, there's two ways you can train it. Obviously, we've talked about this already. We can do the every weekend approach, or we can do the everyday approach. Today, we are going to get deep into the every weekend approach. So let's get started on that. Every weekend. So the way that your week is going to look is you're going to spend a section of time in the gym, and then you're going to spend a section of time, or really just one day, training on events. And a good example of when this might happen is if you live a couple hours away, say 2 hours away, like I lived for many years, away from any kind of implements. You only have really one day a week you can drive over there and train on them. So you're going to have to spend the rest of your time in the gym, and then one day a week you travel to access events. And the way that you structure your weekly training is typically going to consist of a pressing day, a lower body day, and a miscellaneous day. And the pressing day is going to be largely focused on overhead pressing. Some people like to do bench press. I would highly suggest incline pressing if you want to do a bench press variation of some kind. A lot of overhead work, a lot of shoulder work. And then for the leg day, it's going to be very deadlift heavy, right? It's going to be front squats, zerchers, things of this nature, things that have high functional carryover. I'm just now realizing that that's going to have to be another video or several because there is so much to say on that topic. And then the last day is going to be a miscellaneous day. Some things you need to work on. Maybe you have not a lot of rear deltoid development, so you spend a second day working on your rear deltoids and also upper back to help develop those. The miscellaneous is also a catch-all for things that you don't typically train on the other 2 days. And you do need a well-balanced physique, not for the purpose of looking good, right? But for the purpose of maintaining a healthy body and for the purpose of reducing your risk of injury, because a well-rounded body is going to get injured less frequently. And that is a fact. Okay, I will not even entertain the idea that it's not. And so you have your gym strategy, okay? Now let's talk about the event strategy a little bit. You only have 1 day a week to make this count, so you better make it count if you're only training events 1 day, all right? And so that means you have to hit a couple different types of events. And we could list out all 7 here, right? But I only have 5 listed. And that's for the purpose of spatial constraint, but you'll get the idea. And also this is actually a pretty decent plan that I've put together here. So we have different event types. I think that, so I've actually listed this in order of what way I would approach it personally. Pressing first, and then moving events, and then grip events, and then a medley event, and then a loading event. Why did I pick pressing first? You need the fresh legs. Keep your legs fresh before you press because it's going to matter, especially if you use a lot of leg drive. Keep your legs fresh. It's also why I put pressing up here first, because keep your legs fresh. Do your legs after you're pressing, okay, in the week. Also, do your pressing early in the week because you want your shoulders recovered for the event day. So we have pressing, and then we have some moving events, not super strenuous on the CNS. Then we have a little bit of grip. You might have done grip in the moving if you did farmers. We talked about event categories. You could also incorporate medleys and all or some or all, many of these. And then lastly, loading. Why did I put loading last, right? It's almost always last in the events that you'll compete in. And it's also good to get used to being tired when you're doing the loading events. Also, if you're loading stones, you're probably going to get tacky on you. So just as soon as you get tacky on you and you're done loading, you're going to have to clean it off with baby oil or Gojo or WD-40 or whatever you're using, and then you're going to be all slick because you're covered in oil, and you don't want to be covered in oil and doing anything else because that's like the last thing you're going to do. Almost always. We're going to get into an example. Actually, this example down here is an example of a time where you would do something after you're loading. So, and this isn't law. This is just what I've found to work. Something else is going to work for you, and it's going to be great, okay? You just have to experiment with it. So, first example of an event training day. Very simple. I only have you down for 3 events. Very doable, super doable. If you were highly motivated, you could even do this in like an hour, although you would be torched. I would say that this is a 2-hour workout right here. So log press, boom, we knocked out pressing. And then second event is gonna be farmer's walk and sled drag. Boom, farmer's walk. Okay, we got moving, we got grip. And we also had a medley because we're doing both of these. And the sled drag is gonna be moving and medley. So, I mean, you could even slap some rolling thunders on the sled and then make it a grip and it'll be a double grip event. You can get creative, okay? But you can already see we have pressing, moving, grip, medley, all done. Now all we need is loading, right? Loading, gonna be simple. Stone, you can just do a stone load. I actually have it down as a stone carry to load. So you have to carry it to the platform or bar and then load it. That throws in another moving component and it also throws in a loading component. And I've actually labeled each of these accordingly, like showing you what's what. So I'm gonna move this in just a little bit for you guys so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, and then that's our first example. Our second example. I have a pressing medley. So gonna be back and forth, axle clean and press to log clean and press, back and forth for a set amount of time. That's gonna be a double pressing event, right? So it's gonna be just 2 pressing events. And then second movement is gonna be a yoke walk tire flip. So this is a moving event, the yoke walk, with a medley because we're doing 2 different events. And then also plus a miscellaneous, which I didn't list up there. And then for number 3, we're gonna do a keg carry and load. So that's gonna be a moving and a loading, okay? We almost have all of them, but we didn't do a grip thing. What do we do now? Well, guess what? We did the keg carry because there's not gonna be tacky involved, right? So now our hands are fresh, we're not covered in oil. Boom, we can do a plate pinch carry. We can do any kind of grip, you could even do a grip medley. Me and Grant Higa used to love doing grip medleys. I miss the shit out of those. They are hilariously fun. And the crew in the warehouse, we used to do these rolling thunder competitions and Steve Spellman used to always just kick everybody's ass at that. And it was just a blast. Like it was the awesome cool down that we would do. Another thing we would do is just like the chain drag. So we would do a drag at the end of all of our training until people would just fail. And we would just rotate on this drag until people couldn't drag it anymore. That's a great way to accrue that kind of, it's a great way to accrue that experience and that training volume, as well as a camaraderie amongst your training partners. And it's a good way to put like equipment away and take turns on equipment. And it's just fun. It's a lot of fun. It's great. It's a great time. So we talked about our weekly planning, right? How are you gonna plan things that are bigger than a week? Your macro planning, okay? So can you do the same events every single day? Or sorry, every single week? The answer is no. No, you can't. You will destroy yourself, okay? So let's get in a little closer on this one, and I'm gonna start talking about it, the macro training plan. So pressing events can be done 1 time a week. Yes, that's the same pressing events, okay? So you can do log once a week, awesome. Log every week, once a week, cool. Axle once a week, every week, cool. You know, dumbbell once a week, every week, cool. Keg clean press once a week, every week, cool. But all other events are 1 time every 2 weeks. Well, how's this training, like how does this change your structure? Well, it changes it tremendously, right? And the way that some people like to structure this is they do a little bit sporadic, or they'll do, you know, they'll rearrange things, they'll push it for 2 weeks and then back off for 2 weeks, or push it for 2 weeks, back off for 1, or, you know, touch and go. I literally arrange mine into an even and odds. It's very simple. You can do A, B, but I do an even and odd. And the reason that I always list odd first is because when I'm writing my programming, I know that week 1 is odd. So I write odd weeks first and then even weeks, because sometimes I build up in a certain fashion that makes sense in a macroscopic planning for the training cycle. So this is the event type column right here. I have the 4 main event types listed for this, and then I didn't include medley because you can just use an event that will mix 2 of these, or you can mix 2 of these disciplines like sled carry and farmers, or yoke and stones, or whatever you need to do, right? So for this, we see the odd weeks and even weeks. For pressing, we have log and axle. We changed them up but we don't have to change those ones up. They're pressing, they can be the same, they can be different, it's totally fine. For grip, you can see that one week we have farmers and another week we have arm over arm. For farmers, that means we can only do farmers that week. We cannot do farmers on this week, okay? That's a little bit debatable. There's certain circumstances where you can, but if you're going pretty heavy, I would not suggest it, okay? If you're going pretty light, if you're using it as an endurance type event, like you're going over 250 feet, if you can carry it over 250 feet, you're not going super heavy, you could probably do it every week. Good rule of thumb, just once every 2 weeks, okay? And then for our moving event, on the odds week, we have a carry and sled drag. I originally put yoke, but then I realized that, hey, we already have a moving event that is under load, okay? And yoke is one of the main disciplines, like yoke and farmers are two of the main disciplines of strongman. So you really need to separate those, or you can put them together in a medley, but they should not be in the same training week, in my opinion, unless there's a very specific reason for it. So I took yoke out, moved it over to the next week, and put in carry or sled drag. So that can be like a keg carry or a sled drag. And then loading, we did the keg, and then in the even week, we did axle, and then the grip is the arm over arm. That's also a miscellaneous event, as we talked about in the categories video. We did yoke for the moving, stones for the loading, and this video is already almost 12 minutes long, and I still have kind of a lot to say on the topic. But I'm gonna call it here. And next week we're gonna be talking about the everyday split. But if you guys like the video, do the thumbs up, like, all that. And please let me know if you have any questions, if you want me to address any topics in particular. I want to share my knowledge with the community, and I feel like this is a good platform to do that. So I wanna know what you guys are curious about so I can speak to it, given that I have been in the community since 2006. So thank you again for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.